Hey everyone, my name is Deborah J from deborahjkelly.com and Intrepid Soul Navigation. So today's session is all about imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, what is it? Imposter syndrome is essentially that feeling that you get that says, you know, how did I get in here? How did I make it to this level without being caught and being told like, you're not qualified enough, or you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be here. And it's that feeling that we get that we kind of like snuck in the back door to the theatre of our own life, and somehow the bouncer is going to catch us and is going to kick us out. So for those of us who are in business, a lot of us will feel, and me included, like I've had imposter syndrome completely and I still get it every now and again. But I acknowledge it and I feel into it and I allow it to kind of pass through me, and I now have the tools to be able to kind of work with it a little bit better. So imposter syndrome is essentially, you know, it's holding you back from what it is that you want to be doing. It's holding you back from your true purpose. It's holding you back from being completely in alignment with who you are. There's a little voice inside our head that says, you're not qualified enough. You're not good enough. Somebody's going to call you out. Somebody's going to tell you that you're not qualified to be speaking about what you're speaking about. And it's that feeling that you're just waiting to be caught. You know, it's like you're literally like, just kind of like, don't touch anything. It's really, really quiet. Be careful in case anybody spots you or sees you. And really what it does is it holds us back from being able to show up as our true authentic self in our own lives, and to be able to share with the world our talents and our skills and our unique life journeys that we have. So for a moment, I want you to think of some of the people who've inspired you along the way on your own journey. It could be friends or family. It could be people that you know who have their own business that you really like what they do or how they kind of show up in their business. It can be people online, on social media, people in the real world, whoever it is. Just think of somebody who really, really resonates with you and who you kind of really love how they show up. And you'll find in some way, shape or form that they're saying things that you feel. They're saying things that are mirroring how you feel inside. So if you saw somebody online who was doing what you're doing, so take your own particular business and take your own product or service, and imagine you see somebody else online and they're doing exactly what you do, but they seem to be able to show up and they talk about maybe how they're vulnerable and how they ended up pushing past it and how they kind of made their way through, and you think, oh my God, I feel like that. Like I feel like that in my business. I feel like I have this amazing service and I just don't feel qualified enough to do it. And here they are telling me the same thing. Oh my God, I really resonate with that person and I want to work with that person. We work with people who we resonate with. I'm not saying that you need to go out and tell everybody that you're not qualified, because obviously that's not going to necessarily help your plight. But what I'm saying is that you need to have a look at turning your mess into your message. And if your mess is that you're an introvert and you don't like having to show up on social media all the time, or that you know, you've been on this incredible life journey and yet somehow you don't feel like you're qualified to be able to share your story because you don't have a qualification or a piece of paper that goes with it. Depending on what that is, it may not be actually relevant for you to have a piece of paper. It may just be relevant for you to show up in your life and share your story. And so I feel that we are in a world where the paradigms are shifting somewhat. You know, we came from a time where everybody had to have a qualification, and now we're in a time where nobody has a qualification. And we're kind of like shifting, you know, the keel on the boat is kind of all this way and then all that way. And I feel that we're kind of coming back to center in some respects. But just to give you an example, I was at a Hay House. Hay House are the publishers. I was at a Hay House event many years ago. And at the time, I had an inkling that I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't totally definitely sure that I wanted to. And I, in my head, was thinking, like, who am I? Like, who am I to tell my story? And like, who'd want to even read my story? What's the point in writing a story? And I remember Robert Holden was an author there, and he was a speaker at the time. And I remember him saying that to date, your ego has never once published a book. And that just really struck a chord with me. I was like, wow, that's so true. You know, our ego has never once set up a business. Our ego has never once completed a project. Our ego has never once written that book. Our ego never has once completed that course, done that masterclass, given that talk, shared that product or service, created an invention, whatever it is. Because in some way, shape or form, our ego is there to protect us. Our ego is there basically to say, don't do that, you're going to make a fool of yourself, and then I'm protecting you from making a fool of yourself. So the ego has never allowed itself to be successful in its own right, because it's continuously protecting you. And what I'm calling you to do today is to pay more attention to that voice inside your head that says, don't do it. Or to pay more attention to that voice inside your head that says, you're not good enough, you're not qualified enough, who are you, how did you get in here, it was just fluke, it's never going to happen again, and all the rest of it. And when we start to listen to that voice inside our head, it gets smaller, or at least initially what happens is it becomes more obvious and it's easier to catch. And when it becomes more obvious and easier to catch, we can then do something about it. And doing something about it is not actively getting rid of it, because really we can't get rid of these parts of ourselves. We can integrate them, but the more we reject something, the more resistance we meet. So in my soul navigation system, I have 3 pillars. The first is uncovering who you truly are. The second is about reconnecting with your inner wisdom. And the third is about interpreting your world so that you can better understand your experiences and you can navigate life with ease. And that's essentially my system. And it is applicable to absolutely everything. And imposter syndrome is no different. So the first part I would say is uncover who you truly are. Sit down and think about, what are you qualified to do? What are you not qualified to do? What is it that you're trying to do? And what are the areas that you feel most afraid to show up in? And once you begin to uncover that part of yourself, you can become more confident in knowing there's probably very little, actually, when you add it all up, there's probably very little that you're not qualified to do. And whatever it is that you're not qualified to do really is probably something that you can learn if you really, really wanted to. There's also a difference between not being qualified to do something and not wanting to do something. And so if you're in your business or your service, whatever it is that you're working on, if you feel that your biggest hurdle is, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that, and I don't know how to show up, and I don't know how to speak, and I don't know, and what if people say, and all this kind of thing. And I know, because I felt that as well. As I said, I still feel it to this day, but I'm catching the voice a lot more. And when you hear that, you can then begin to address that. You can then begin to understand the purpose of it. Why do I not feel qualified? I don't feel qualified because there's other people who are more qualified. But if that's true, then equally the opposite is true, is that there's plenty of people who are not qualified and are less qualified than even you to tell your story. It's not about, and we've probably, many of you who have been in the entrepreneurial world online have probably heard this over and over again, but it's not about being an expert at the top of the mountain, shouting down to everybody going, come ahead, come up here. We see somebody at the top of a mountain and we think, oh God, they race up there. I'm not as fit. There's no way I'm going to get up that far that quick. But you see somebody who's halfway up, or say a quarter of the way up further than where you are, and they say, come on, it's okay, you can do it. You're more likely to listen and react to that person who is part of the way up the mountain than the person who's just sped all the way to the top and is trying to tell you everything's going to be okay. And the reason I'm saying that is because we can relate to people who are closer to us. We can relate to people who are more like us. And that's natural, and it's so natural to do. So whatever your experience is, you know more than people who don't know what you know. And you know less than people who know a lot more than what you know. And it's this kind of comparisonitis that we see time and time again, where we're comparing ourselves chapter 20 to somebody else's chapter 1. Again, this is another thing that we hear online quite a lot, but it's so true. And so when we feel like this, the most important part is to acknowledge it, is to simply just acknowledge it. And so, as I said, the first part of my system is like a whole 6 to 8 or 10 week program, depending on how long you want to do it. But in terms of our topic for today, in terms of imposter syndrome, the first part is uncovering your true self. It's getting to know what are you comfortable with and what are you not comfortable with. And when you know that, it's easier for you to move in the space that you're comfortable in. I also wanted to throw in here, just at this point, in terms of the uncovering your true self. Sometimes we are living in a life that we feel or think, or say that we think that we're supposed to be living, versus how we are actually supposed to be living. So we're chasing careers and jobs and lifestyles that we think are going to make us happy, and we get there and then suddenly we realize it didn't make us happy. We're still unfulfilled. We're still chasing our tail. And why is that? It's because our idea and concept of success is linked to something which is, it's transient, it's movable. So what I would ask you to do today is to journal. And I feel personally, I know everybody journals, but journaling is incredibly important because it allows you to get all this information from here out onto a page and feel less overwhelmed. Because a lot of this imposter syndrome creates this feeling of just being incredibly overwhelmed. And when we get what's in our head out on paper, suddenly it doesn't feel less daunting. And we look at it and go, oh, half of that is rubbish. And it may be, or it may not be. So I would call you and invite you to journal on the idea of, what does success mean? What does a successful career look like? And what does that mean in terms of my life? Because you'll find that there's a huge amount of people who go after these successful careers and they make it to the top, and they're still pedaling as hard as they were at the very beginning. And they're thinking, why am I pedaling so hard? You're pedaling so hard because you started pedaling hard. You know, it's not to say don't put your foot on the gas, but it's saying that if you want to live a life that's in flow, you can't start off all stressed out and manic and freaked out and like in your way and creating this like, I'll get all the hard work done at the beginning and then I can take my foot off the gas. Because when is the line in the sand as to when you actually take your foot off the gas and stop all that crazy mayhem? It may never come, especially if you've created, like attracts like, if you've created this manic feeling of like being stressed out and I'll get this out of the way so that I can free up my life to be happy. You're just going to continue doing that, or something at some point is going to push a resistance against you and get you to reevaluate what it is that you really want in your life. So why not start off now? Why not do that now? Why not make the decision now to live your life and be in your business and show up in your life the way that you're meant to and in alignment, rather than waiting to do that 10 years from now? You know, do it now. Choose to do it now. So while you're uncovering your true self, I want you to journal, what is success to me? What does it mean to me? What does it look like? How will I know when I've achieved that success? And what are my beliefs and what are my real what's the real truth behind it? And why do I want success? So that will be the first thing that I would say to you. The next part is reconnecting with our inner wisdom. This is essentially how we show up for ourselves, and we create a relationship, an energetic trust and rapport with ourselves, with our inner wisdom, with our intuition, with our inner guidance system. And this is kind of like the yes, no, I'm happy, I'm not happy kind of feelings that we get in the world. So when we're out of alignment, we're frustrated, we're anxious, we're irritated, we're stressed out, our wellness, our well-being goes down. We can end up being quite ill with disease and disharmony in our body. We feel energetically fatigued and worn out. We've less time and space for the things that make us happy. We've less time and space for the people in our lives, for the things that we love and enjoy doing. So what I would say to you is take a look at all that and feel into your body about what feels right and wrong about this. Why do I feel so much resistance showing up in the world as myself? What is the dialogue behind this? What is it that I'm telling myself? And just feel it. Like, have the sentences of I feel like an imposter because I don't feel good enough. Where do you feel that in your body? I feel like an imposter because I feel like somebody's going to point at me and tell me that I'm not qualified enough. Where do you feel in your body, and who told you that? Where did you get that from? About 70% of the world's population experiences imposter syndrome at one time or another. And what I wanted to let you know is that many of the top business people in the world have all experienced imposter syndrome as well. So some examples of this are Seth Godin, the marketing guru, basically has said in his lifetime, he's like written, I think it's like 19 books or something like that on marketing. And I think in one of his last books, he basically said, like, I'm convinced at some point somebody's going to turn around to me and tell me that I'm actually not qualified enough to be writing books on marketing. If I can find my other list here, is Cheryl Sandberg. Basically, she's a chief operating officer in Facebook. She was at a Grace Hopper, and she basically announced to like 18,000 people that Grace Hopper is basically like an event that's run for women who are in computing and all that kind of area. And this woman, basically Cheryl Sandberg, turned up and said, I don't know how I'm here. I'm not qualified. I'm not actually qualified in any computer science degree, and yet I'm working in Facebook and I'm here giving a talk at Grace Hopper. You know, so here's a very wealthy, successful businesswoman who's admitting her own imposter syndrome as well. And then Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz was I think he came from a low income background. He had a career in, I think it was like creating copywriting or copy, even photocopy machines, something like that. He started Starbucks. After he went on a trip to Italy, and basically found these small little cafes in Italy and was like, why are we not doing these in America? And he set up this chain of Starbucks. He became a wealthy, successful multimillionaire, or maybe probably multi-billionaire now at this stage. But even he said himself, like, how is this working? Because like, how does a guy who started in photocopy sales get to selling coffee? Like, he knew nothing about coffee, he knew nothing about running a business. He was a photocopy salesperson, and now he's multi-millionaire. So these are like just examples of three people who feel imposter syndrome as well. And Maya Angelou, beautiful Maya Angelou, she's a poet and a writer, and she wrote in one of her books, I can't remember which book it was, but basically she said anytime now somebody's going to point the finger and basically say that you're not qualified to be writing books. Like, amazing. These are all people who've had the same kind of feelings as well. So when we begin to reconnect with our inner wisdom, we begin to feel into the whys as to why we don't feel good enough. And as I said, sometimes that why we don't feel good enough might be that we're, maybe it's that you don't want to do it. Maybe you're doing something that's out of alignment. Maybe you're doing something, you're pushing hard for a career when you want to be at home with your kids, or you're pushing hard for a career in XYZ when you wanted it in ABC, whatever it is. It's time to it's time to reevaluate and time to look at where you're really at. In astrology, this is actually quite interesting. In astrology, I'm often looking at people's charts, and I've read so many charts where I've had people come to me and they feel guilty that they're not showing up in their business, they're not showing up in their world. And quite often I've seen that in their chart, their career house is actually not lit up, or their south and north nodes, so their life purpose and kind of where they are, where they're coming from, going to, is actually showing that in this lifetime, they're not meant to be chasing a career. They're meant to actually be at home. And when I've shown them that, they're like, oh my God, I've known this, but I've felt that the world expected me to start my own business, be my own boss, and do all these things. And they wonder, like, why is this not working for me? Why am I meeting so resistance in what it is that I'm doing? Now, I'm not telling you that your career house is not lit up and you're not meant to be doing your job. But what I'm saying to you is astrology can actually show you quite easily what your career is, what your vocation is, what you need on a daily basis in order to feel secure and comfortable in your day-to-day routines. What do you need in terms of values and skills and talents that you need to build in order to be able to achieve a successful career? It will show you whether your career house is lit up or whether it's not. That doesn't mean that you can't have a career. You can, but it will tell you where your energies in this lifetime are actually meant to be put. So then you can go on and do that if that's what you want to do. So that's in terms of astrology, and I offer soul navigation sessions. I do astrology career readings. So anybody who's interested, just drop me an email or send me a DM, and we can talk about that. But what I'm showing you here is when you reconnect in with yourself and really, really are honest with yourself about, how do I feel about what's happening? Why do I feel disempowered? Why do I feel like I'm pushing and nothing's happening? Why do I feel like I'm not able to push? Why do I feel unmotivated by this? When we tap into all of those feelings, we can feel into the answers, because it's only you has the answer to it. Nobody else has the answer to it. And as I said, you might discover that actually you don't even want a career. You just want to be at home, or that you don't want to work hard in this lifetime. Maybe you just don't want to work hard in this lifetime. In which case, you need to figure out how you can get to a stage in your life where you don't have to work hard. Or how do you get to a stage in life where you can do something that brings you joy? You know, if you're in a career and you're an entrepreneur, it should be bringing you joy. You know, it should be part of, instead of being like, I need to pay the bills and that's why I'm an entrepreneur. These are the wrong reasons, which is probably why you're feeling like you can't show up. If you look at your imposter syndrome, is hiding your real message to the world. Maybe on the outside you're thinking like, yeah, I need to pay the bills and I need to do all this, but in behind it you're thinking like, I want to have freedom, I want to be in flow with the universe, I don't want to be working really hard all my life. That's your reason, that's your why. And then when you actually bring yourself out in the world in the way that's authentic and meaningful to you, other people can feel that from you. They can resonate that from you. They can pick that up from you, and then they're more drawn to you. It's the same with friends. We attract friends who are actually quite similar to us in some ways, or have some sort of similarities or interests or likes or dislikes or personality traits. Our customers are the same. Our customers are people who are like us. You know, they want to be like us, or they want something that we have. They want the knowledge and wisdom that they have because they're interested in it. I do Reiki and Reflexology, as well as astrology and coaching, and among other things. And my clients come to me because they feel that I have this wisdom that's tapping into nature and the natural rhythms of nature. I'm into shamanism and mediumship and herbal medicine, and I'm into spirituality, and I'm into practical woo-woo, but mine's a very down-to-earth approach. So people who come to me, my clients, want a practical day-to-day solution to their problems. So they come to me knowing that I have all these little tiny bits of information that I can give them. So they come to me for Reiki, I'll send them off with some sort of something to do for, whether it's journaling or herbal medicine or tapping or acupressure points or essential oils or whatever it is. People come to me because they know that I've got practical day-to-day solutions to their problems. And like, I'm more than happy to say that I'm completely imperfect. I am so perfectly imperfect. It's what makes me perfect. Far from perfect. But the point of what I'm saying is I'm actually feel that more of us needs to show our imperfections, and more of us needs to show our vulnerabilities. Now, that doesn't mean that our vulnerabilities are it's more the vulnerabilities of ourselves that we have figured out how to be okay with. When you share a vulnerability that you've accepted, other people feel inspired to accept their vulnerabilities. If you share a vulnerability and you haven't accepted it yet, all you're doing is showing your vulnerability, and you have to choose who you do that with. That's not something that you necessarily need to do online, but you can share your vulnerability and your acceptance of it, like from a place of truth, if you have accepted it, and other people are going to resonate with that. Other people are really going to feel that. And I feel that this is where social media and the world of social media, I hate it, but at the same time, I enjoy it when I enjoy it, and I hate it when I hate it. And the times that I'm hating it is usually because I'm like, oh, I have to show up and I have to do X, Y, Z in a certain amount of time. When I change that to being like, oh my God, today I got to share that I made like a herbal tincture. Today I got to share a Reiki session that I did. Today I got to share a chart that I did with somebody. And it kind of gets me excited, because when you think about talking to your friends, you tell your friends about what it is that you're doing. You know, if you got to do your ideal business today and got to run your business in an ideal way today, you'd be telling your friends how you did that. You'd be telling your friends how excited you felt. You'd be telling your friends the outcome of that. Tell your clients the same thing. Use social media to share your excitement. Use social media to share your wisdom. Because really that's what it's, you know, that's how I do it. That's how I feel about it. I feel that rather than kind of like selling what you're doing, it's like you're not selling. You're telling people what you do. You're sharing what you do, and share with them as if they're friends. Imagine that at the opposite end of your social media account is your friends, and you're just really excited to tell them, I had this session today, it was really amazing. A person came into me and they couldn't move their hand, and by the end of the session they were walking out and they were like opening the door, no problem, after their Reiki session. Like, that's amazing. Or like I had a healing session last week and it was incredible. I did a distance healing session and it was insane. Like, I really tuned into the person, and the next day they told me like all these different changes that they had to their body the next day, and I felt great about it. Share that with your people, share that with your clients, because they want to hear your competency, they want to hear what you're excited about, they want to hear your interests. They, you know, they don't necessarily want to see what you're putting in your tea unless it's something to do with helping them get a good night's sleep or feel less stressed or whatever. Just make sure that everything that you're sharing has some sort of a purpose for it, whether it's sharing your genuine excitement, or whether it's sharing the outcome that you helped somebody reach, or whether it's sharing a milestone, whatever it is. Share with these people as though they were your friends, and then they will become your friends, and do it in an honest, authentic way. And I feel that when we do that, that's really, we're living in alignment. So reconnecting with our inner wisdom is really tapping into, does this feel good? Does this not feel good? And the more you show up for yourself and do something that feels good, the more you can continue to do that, the more you'll enjoy doing that. And the imposter syndrome begins to fade. So the third part is interpreting your world. When we are stuck in imposter syndrome, we are in comparisonitis. We are unmotivated, we are anxious, we're totally stressed out, we feel like a failure. I would say to you, go back and think about where those programs came from, because the majority of people who suffer with imposter syndrome generally have come from, and there's been research done on this, generally they've come from a background that has had some sort of emotional neglect or emotional abuse or physical abuse. There's been some sort of trauma, or maybe they were silenced as a child. You know, they were, you know, they shared their excitement and they were told, like, don't get too cocky, you know, don't be so full of yourself, or that's great, but it was just a fluke, or you need to try harder next time, or that's great, but it wasn't really as good as you thought it was, or whatever it is. And if it's not from childhood that you received, maybe there was a parent that wasn't as supportive for you, it could have happened later in life. You know, if you've been working loads of stressful jobs where you just didn't get the acknowledgement for the work that you put in, there can be the sense and feeling that you're having to work really hard to be able to get any kind of achievement, get any kind of good luck. And there can be this record on repeat that basically says, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, or I have to work really hard in order for anything good to come to me. Or my parents never had it easy, so I shouldn't have it easy. Or my parents never had it easy, so it's probably not going to happen for me. Or my family's always had bad luck, so I'm probably going to have bad luck. Or whatever your record is. When we meet resistance in our external environment, when we're constantly experiencing this kind of like, I'm not able to push forward, usually there's a reason for it. And the reason is that the universe is trying to mirror back to you something that you've not healed in yourself, something that you haven't addressed or brought to light in yourself. So when we meet a repetitive pattern being like, oh, I never can succeed, or I'm never able to push through, where did you learn that? And what is it that you can face and learn from this experience? Is the universe trying to tell you that you have this broken record playing and it's time to heal that now? Is the universe saying with that resistance that now is not the right time? Is the universe saying that I'm going to push against you to see, do you really want this so you can push through? Is the universe saying that you've got it right, but you just need to amend it and go a different way. You know, just instead of kind of keep going, pushing against the force, come up with a creative way to be able to go around the force. These are usually the reasons that we are meeting resistance. It's usually the universe's way of getting us to stop. Just stop. If you're feeling resistance, just stop. And feel into your inner wisdom and connect in with, why is it that I'm feeling this resistance? Is it because I don't feel good enough? Is it because I was told I would never be good enough? Is it because I assumed I would never be good enough? Is it because I don't have enough self-value or self-worth in myself? Is it because I don't know how to show up for myself? Is it because I have a belief that I can't save myself? Is it because I don't like what I'm doing? Is it because I'm doing what I'm doing because I thought I was supposed to, but I don't feel in alignment with it? Is it because I feel like I'm being held back and it's just not the right time yet? Is it because I'm making up stories as to why I can't do it? See the way I'm going, like there's loads of different reasons as to why you might not be doing something. And when we sit with ourselves in silence and do some journaling and really just feel into our body for how do those sentences make you feel? Like I would say to you in a journal, write out all these questions as to why you're feeling resistance, like all the questions I've just said there now. And sit in silence and just read each of those questions out to yourself and just sit in your response. Sit in your reaction. Sit in the feeling of, ooh, I don't like how that feels in my body. And instead of moving on from it, just allow it to be there. You don't even need to figure out the answer just yet. Just say, ask your body, ask yourself, your higher self, whatever way you want to do it. Is the reason that I'm meeting resistance because I don't want to do this? And you might feel an opening, or you might feel a contraction. You might feel an excitement. You might feel an apprehension. And usually good feelings are like open and expansive, and not so good feelings are usually contractive and like they feel like tight, you know, expansive versus tight. So again, you might sit there and say, with your eyes closed and in a calm space and, you know, nice, gentle breathing, to say to yourself, is the reason that this is not working because it's just not the right time? And literally just take the first thing that comes to you. Your answer doesn't have to be correct, and don't even panic if you get like a yes or no and that's not the answer you wanted. All you want to do is just take the first answer and see how does it feel in your body. You can even, if you ask yourself that question and nothing really happens, you can even ask yourself the question, just reply yes or no. So you can say, is the reason I'm meeting so much resistance and I feel like I'm an imposter because I don't feel good enough? And sit there. How does it feel? And just say, yes, I do feel good enough. No, I don't feel good enough. And feel the difference in your body. And this can be an incredibly helpful tool for to be able to figure out where we're at. Just another note as well, for those who are from the age of like, say, 35 to 44, 45, there is what we call in astrology midlife transits. What the heck is that, Debs? Midlife transits are where the outer planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus all are what we call generation or kind of collective. They're planets that move really, really slowly in the sky, and they have more like a generational type feel to them. But what they do is when they make what we call angles, so you have in your birth chart where all your individual planets are. So say you've got Uranus here, okay? But this is where Uranus is here in your birth chart. When Uranus continues in the sky, this is like it continues to travel around. This is your fixed chart, and then this is today's chart, you know, or this year's chart. Uranus will travel around. When Uranus comes all the way to the opposite side, it's called a Uranus opposition. It happens at the age of like 42 to 44. It's a life review. It's like a sudden change. It's when people go out and buy Ferraris and do crazy things. And it's usually like this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm halfway through life. What am I doing with my life? Like, what is it that I stand for? What is it I want to be doing? What is it I'm trying to achieve? And it's this feeling of like, it's like almost like a panicky feeling going, I need to change something. Something needs to change. And generally it will. It could be your haircut. It could be your whole entire life. It could be your relationship. And it depends on where in your chart that falls as to how that is for you. And everybody is completely individual and independent of each other. But when we have in our kind of early 30s, all the way up to 50, we get Neptune, a Neptune square, and we get a Pluto square. Pluto square can happen anytime from 36 up to 50. Pluto square is like, are you ready to step into your power? Pluto is the planet of transformation. It is life, death, and rebirth. It is burn it to the ground and start it again. It's the phoenix from the ashes, and it's all about empowerment. When you have your Pluto square in the sky, so that means that your natal Pluto is at a square to the transiting Pluto. When that happens, that's a huge life lesson. That is a lesson that you cannot escape, and it's about you stepping into your empowerment. And again, this varies for different people. Everybody's chart is completely different. So it could, you could be 50 when this happens, or you could be 36 when this happens. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when it does happen, and if you're going through this at the moment, the resistance that you're feeling may well be that the universe is asking you to step into your power. And you have to. It will push you to step into your power. Saturn is another transit that we have as well. And when Saturn does a square or trine, it's all about our boundaries. It's about responsibility. It's about manifesting the reality that we really, really wanted. And so when Saturn is having an aspect, it's calling us to check in with ourselves in our life lesson and say, what is it that I want to manifest in this world? How can I do that? And what are the boundaries that I need to push against or push through in order to achieve that? And so if you're meeting resistance, Saturn is also about responsibilities. If you're meeting resistance, it could be that Saturn is literally pushing against you to see, do you want this? Do you really, really want this? Okay, push through. Or it could be that, are you really, really chasing something that you're kind of barking up the wrong tree? Or it also could be like, how does responsibility feel to you? To be an entrepreneur and to run your own business can be a huge responsibility, especially if you have children or a family to look after. And maybe that's a responsibility that you don't really want, but you want to have your business. And so you need to kind of push through and look at that as well. And the imposter syndrome that comes with that is, I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified enough. I haven't learned enough. And the chances are, whatever it is that your mess is your message, that's what qualifies you. Chances are that you're fully qualified. You just don't have a piece of paper to show it. You might have life experience to be able to show it to other people, or to share that life experience with other people. And then we have Neptune transit, and Neptune is all about self-doubt, illusion. Neptune is a very nebulous kind of planet and very ethereal and very, very much to do with spirituality. So when you're having a Neptune square, it can be challenging you to step into a more spiritual aspect of yourself. Is your business in alignment with your spirituality? Have you got a calling that you're meant to answer and you're not doing it? You're off chasing this career when really it should be this one, because you're actually here to help transform the planet, or lead, or do whatever it is that you're meant to do. Maybe you're a healer. And so all these transits, basically what I'm telling you is when we learn to interpret our world, as in when we realize the patterns that we keep meeting over and over and over again, there's usually a lesson. And the lesson is that we need to stop and feel into, reconnect with our inner wisdom, what it is that we're trying to achieve, and what is that when it's in alignment with who we are underneath. So essentially, this is a lot of talking, and I'm aware that it's probably like brain drain to some extent, but I would ask you to just do a couple of things. Just journal on, what is success for you? Journal on, why do you feel like an imposter? What is it that you want to achieve and feel that you're not qualified to achieve? And the things that you're not qualified in, can you go off and study them? Or can you ask somebody else to help you with them? if you feel like you're not qualified to do something, is there somebody else who can help you feel more qualified, or who can take that burden from you, that will allow you to go off and be your playful self and enjoy the work that you do? I would also ask you to journal into, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? And what is your message? What is your mess? What did you have to resolve and figure out in your lifetime, which brought you to this place of going, I've got a service or a product that's actually going to help people out of that? Because that's generally where we're coming from. It's usually like this experience that we had where it made our lives easier, and now I want to help other people have an easier life by sharing this with them. And just understand, what is the purpose for you doing it, and come back to that, come back to that feeling as to why you're doing it, and it feels less troublesome to turn up. I know if you're an introvert, it can be that you just don't want to show up. You don't want to show up in the world, but you have to remember that there's a reason that you are creating this product or service, and it's to do with the world. It's not just to do with you, or it may be just to do with you, but it involves interactions with other people. And so you need to reevaluate, like, if I'm an introvert and I like being at home and I don't like being around other people, and I just want to do this thing and just focus on that for the rest of my life, that's great. But how is that contributing towards your end goal? And how do the people in the world, because if you're selling a product or service, you have to interact with other people. What is it that you're doing for them that helps you feel good? And rather than seeing these people as your clients, can you see them as friends that you haven't met yet, or friends that you haven't befriended yet? Because when we talk about a product or service with friends, we talk about it completely differently than how we talk with strangers. But the strangers are the people you need to be telling about your service or product. If a friend, if you're if you have a product that is really useful for helping older people to open cans, right, just for argument's sake, and you're an introvert and you want to stay at home and just like make your little product and then just like have people buy it. The reason you're making the product is not just purely because you enjoy making the product. It's also because that product helps other people to not feel pain in their hand when they're opening cans. So your drive behind it is like making other people's lives easier. So how do you do that? You have to tell other people about it. You have to, and you may not be qualified, but you are, because you've gone through the experience that drove you with that passion to create that product. And that's what we need to remember as well. Your passion is what qualifies you to talk about what you're talking about. Your passion and drive is what is qualifying you to talk about your product or service in a different way. You could have 5 people in a room, all with the exact same service, and every person's passion and reason for doing that particular service is completely different. And they're going to attract people who are resonating at the same frequency, who've been on the same path, who are looking for those particular products. So from 1 to 5, if everybody's completely different, then they're going to attract different people. So you could have a pool of 5 people who do Reiki. They all do for different reasons, and they're all attracting clients that resonate with that particular reason. So it's the reason that we're doing it that attracts the people who want to actually come to you for your story. And quite often it is the story as well. So that is my spiel on imposter syndrome. It has been long, I'm sure, because I like to waffle, but I hope that it's been really helpful, and I hope that it's given you some clues into how to rectify imposter syndrome. And a lot of it really is quietening the voice in your head, separating the two devils, the devil and the angel, the one that says, oh, go do this, I'm really passionate about it, and the devil who goes, nah, you're not qualified enough, forget it. By listening to this part of yourself that has not achieved anything, this part of yourself that is protecting you, going back to the beginning, this part of you that says, oh, don't write that book, or don't do that course, or you're not qualified enough, or you're not good enough. This part of yourself is stopping you from delivering your goods to the world. There's people who need to hear your message in your way. There's people out there who have a fear of speaking and talking in public. They want to hear from somebody, if you, whatever your product or service is, if you share the fact that you really just don't like public speaking, but you're doing it anyway, somebody who's selling the exact same product as you is going to miss out on an opportunity of a client who wants to come to you because they feel embarrassed about public speaking as well, if that makes sense. So it's like, share your ick a little bit, but share it like from a point of view that, like, in the same way you'd share it with a friend. It's like, if you're really uncomfortable, but I actually want to be able to share, la 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 la. Tell your clients that if that gets you over the imposter syndrome. I know for me, it helps me to be able to, I have Scorpio rising in my chart, which is all about throwing light into the darkness. So for me, it helps me to be able to say, I feel really uncomfortable doing this. I'm completely imperfect. Please don't expect me to be perfect, because I'm not. And then I deliver what I deliver and people resonate with it because they kind of think, well, I'm imperfect too. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you've gotten some value out of it. I would absolutely adore to hear, in what way do you feel like an imposter? What do you feel is holding you back? And let me know, drop me an email or on social media, drop me a DM, and I will do my best to make a video about it. And I'll actually, or even maybe do some coaching with it as well. So let me know if there's any questions you have. As I say, drop me an email or DM, and I look forward to talking to you. Otherwise, get out there, be who you are. There is only one of you. And the world needs you. The world needs you and what you have, regardless of what you think. The world needs you and what you have. So stop, stop limiting the world from your exposure, because the world needs you. There's people out there who need to hear your story and who need your product and service. If you've come up with it and you've created it, go with that spark and take a leap of faith and see what happens. And I shall talk to you soon. Bye.